Welcome back, everyone. This is John from Vintage Watch Hunter here again, and today we are going to do a crystal replacement on this 1969 Seiko 6106-8510. We are going to be replacing this with a 320W10 G-end crystal that we have got for this guy. As you can see, this watch is in dire need of a replacement. I believe in a former life this watch was used by some kind of welder, because these markings on the crystal look to me like they are splatter from a welder. Oddly enough, there is no splatter on the case itself, so this watch is in actually very good condition, and I think it's going to clean up very nicely once we have the new crystal on it. So we're going to go over a few things. Right now we're going to talk about the crystal itself, the tools you're going to need in order to change one of these guys, the parts that you're going to remove, and the best way to go about doing this little operation. So just a real quick overview of this watch. It is a 42mm case, very large actually for Seiko, I think, of the time. Most of the other Seiko 5 divers were around 38 to 40mm, so this is a pretty big guy. This watch has a rotating bezel. It's a bidirectional bezel, and it is slightly loose. We're going to see if we can tighten that up a little bit, or even what that's going to look like once we get into this bezel. So there are some parts here, and we'll go over that. But first, we'll go over the tools that we're going to need in order to change this crystal over. All right, the tools you're going to need. First off, you need a good caseback knife. All right, this one is Swiss made. I recommend this one or any others like it. This has a dull blade. It's very easy to use, and it doesn't slip that much. I really like this piece. Don't buy one of the Chinese ones. You're going to scratch up your watches. Okay, next one. You're going to need another caseback opener. All right, this one is just going to be to take off and put back on the screw down caseback on your 6105, or excuse me, 6106. As well, you are going to want a tweezer, a watchmaking tweezer. You can get these at various locations, but you'll probably need one. Lastly, not lastly, but almost lastly, you're going to need a blower just to make sure there's no dust on any of your parts. And the last thing you're going to need is a crystal press. And I'm going to use this die to represent that because I don't want to bring my crystal press out. So you'll need a crystal press, some tweezers, caseback knife, another caseback knife, and a blower. And if you have enough money to be luxurious, I would recommend some pegwood and an ultrasonic cleaner and a way to clean off your watch. So these are the tools. We're going to get to it, and we'll be done in a couple minutes. Alright, so here we go. We are going to remove all of the parts that we need to in order to get this crystal out. Now, this crystal comes out from the front. Okay, so what we're going to have to do first is, well, remove the movement. So we're going to flip the movement over. I believe I have already loosened this guy up. Maybe not. I'm going to loosen this up real quick with my Horotech caseback removal tool, and then we'll get this movement out of this watch. So let's just line this up. Oh, it's pretty tight. When that happens, I'm going to pull out this little guy. So this is going to hold the movement in place, right? Okay. And let's get it turning a little bit. There we go. That should be loose enough to do by hand now. Okay. So there's our movement here. So we'll get this out of the case holder. We'll remove that. What we're going to need now is our tweezers here. I use Dumont. You can use whatever you like. And we need to get this crown out. Now, in order to get this crown out, there is a pusher here. Whoop. Back into frame. Try and get this focused up. Next to the crown on the left-hand side, you see this little dot right here. So we're just going to push that down very lightly, and at the same time we will pull out this crown. Now once that comes out, then all you have is just the movement retainer ring right around the movement, and the movement should fall right out of the case. So let's just do that. I'll put this down here. Okay, we'll get this set. There we go. And then we're going to push this down slightly and pull out the crown. And it's that easy. I don't know if my hands block that, but again, we push this down and simultaneously remove the crown. So it comes out just like that. Okay. Now also what you need is a safe place to store this. Just for the purpose of the video, we're going to put it right here in the case back. Okay? And I'll move this out to the side and we'll do something with it later. So we're going to get this movement retainer ring out first. Just like that. Alright, and we'll move that to the side. Now, this movement is ready to come out. Make sure we keep this away from dust. Okay, protect this from dust. You don't want any dust to get onto your movement. So what I'm going to do is just flip this over here and then flip it right back. And the movement's just going to come right out. Okay, we'll take it all out with the dial and everything just like that. Here's another quick look at the dial. This is a beautiful 6106. I believe this is the only reference of this series that has these raised hour markers that are super, super gorgeous. These are really, really nice. This is also a Japanese and English day date with a quick set where the pusher, or excuse me, where the crown pushes in to change both the day and the date. Okay, so we're going to be done with this movement now until basically we're ready to put this all back together. So I'm going to, again, cover this up, protect it from dust, and we'll get it out of the way. All right, so back to our case. The first thing we need to do is remove this bezel, okay? And if we take a look here at the edge of the bezel, there is going to be a spot on this bezel. I'll move it like this, make it easier for myself. That is slightly raised. This is done by Seiko. It was not done by another watchmaker. You'll see this on every watch. Now this is the hard part. We're going to have to find this little raised section. There it is. Hopefully everyone can see that. See if I can get close to it. There is a tiny raised section right here on the bezel. And what we're going to do is lightly stick our case back tool in to try and pry this bezel off. Okay, so you have to be kind of nice with this. And a tip is to do this right here at either the top of the case or the bottom of the case. You don't want to do this on the side because you can see, right? You'll be able to see if it's a really nice case, if it's in good shape, especially. You don't want to damage any of the brushed or polished finishes on the case. So it's best, again, to go from the top or the sides where you're not going to damage anything. And if you do slightly damage it, you probably won't see it. So we're just going to lift this up a little at a time, and it is coming. Let me see, keep trying. Difficult to do this on video, I'll tell you that. But we'll keep going at it. There it is. Okay. So the bezel has come off. Alright. So we flip the bezel over, you will see that it just has its applied paint on both sides, okay? So, there's our first piece of the puzzle, our bezel. I'm actually surprised this is not super dirty, but sometimes they are. So underneath we have an O-ring. This gasket is pretty old. It's not in great shape, but I'm going to remove this real quick. Now I would not recommend pulling it with your finger. I would try and use one of your smaller screwdrivers, if you have one, to just gently press up and slide through. There we go. Okay, and it's going to pop right off, just like that. So now we have the outer bezel, and we have an O-ring. So we'll set those here and here. Okay, so same thing like we talked about with the bezel, where you need to find the portion of the bezel that is slightly curved so we can stick our case back opener tool in there. Same thing with the ring that holds down or seats the crystal onto the case. So we're going to turn this over, and we are going to try and locate that. Now, making this video, I'm a little far away, so it could be difficult to find. Let me see if I can get us a little closer here to the camera. I think this is it right here. You see it ever so slightly is raised up right there. So we're just going to keep going around to try and see if we can find any other space where that is raised up. And I don't think so. I think this is our little spot. So once we take this off, once we put our case back tool right in there and try and lever this up, then this ring will come off, the crystal will come out the front, and then under it we're going to find its seating gasket and kind of shelf that the gasket sits on. Okay, so I'm going to do this real quick. See what we got here. Going to find it right there. Again, this is kind of difficult to do while we are filming, but I'm going to try. There we go. So you just want to get in and then pry. I like to pry it up, okay? If you pry, or excuse me, I like to pry like I'm turning, right? I don't turn the case back opener like this. If you do that, especially on the back, when you do this, that case back opener very often is going to slide out and scratch everything. So what I like to do is just go and pry it up from the side. So here we go. Sometimes this takes a while. Oh, okay, we're in, as you can see. And there it is. And just a little bit of torque. You don't have to really give it too much. So here comes that cover over the crystal. Now the crystal is loose. So again, we'll put that down there. So just to go over this one more time, we have the bezel, the O-ring that sits around the outside, or the outside of the case under the bezel. And then under that, we have the ring that holds down the crystal. Okay. So this crystal, if I turn it over and I pop it, oh, comes right out. So there it is. So our crystal is out, and it is pretty disgusting. That is our crystal. Okay. So again, this is actually in really good shape inside. Wow. We have some dirt here, and we have our little rubber O-ring that sits inside the case, and under that is kind of the shelf that it sits on. And those two will, whoops, don't want to drop that, will just come right out, okay? So we have the O-ring the crystal sits on, and then the shelf that sits on. Let me get rid of that. We don't need to see that. So there are 5 pieces, including the crystal, that you're going to have to remove. Now, we have our case here, and it's a little dirty. So what we're going to do first is we're going to get our pegwood, and with our pegwood we are going to clean this off. And once we get that done, we are going to put this entire case in the ultrasonic cleaner, and we're going to have it nice and shiny. So let me find some pegwood here, and then we are going to clean this. Okay. So here we are. So here's some nice pegwood, right? This is watchmaking pegwood. You can get it anywhere online, and it's very cheap. So you should have, if you're working on watches, everyone should have some pegwood. So what I'm going to do is now just kind of go around the case and get rid of all this grime. that has been built up here for the last 40-ish years. So already we're seeing a really big difference, and you can tell by all of the crap that is now on my pad of how much has come off. Okay. All right. Just about done with this. So already it's quite clean, or the case is getting clean, but my mat is getting dirty. So now we're going to take all of these parts outside of the O-rings, but we're going to take these, we're going to put them in the ultrasonic cleaner, and after I snap my fingers, this is going to be super clean. Ready? And welcome back, everyone. Just like that, with the magic of the internet, our watch is now clean and ready for reassembly. So we'll take a closer look at this. We just put this in the ultrasonic cleaner. Got a little bath. I use L&R cleaning solution. It can be a little expensive for just a hobbyist, but it's a really good way to clean the watches. If you don't want to spend that much money, you can always just use soap and water and an ultrasonic cleaner. And you can get those very cheap. Try and put a link below for a lot of the tools that I use. Anyway, so here we go. Everything is clean. We have our new crystal here. Again, say 320 W10GN, and we are going to replace it right now into our watch. We're going to get rid of this old ugly one, and we are going to breathe new life back into our Seiko 6106. So all we need to do again is put everything back in the reverse order from which it came. One tip, actually, I did not put the bezel here into my ultrasonic cleaner. I would not really recommend doing that for a couple reasons. One, the lume here the lume at 12. If you put this in the ultrasonic cleaner for too long, the lume will come right out. As well, some of the black, like the applique, will come off. So, you know, beware of putting this in the cleaner. If you did, I would probably put it in just for a couple seconds. I don't know how much that would do for it, but I decided not to put this in. So the bezel did not go in. Every other stainless steel part, though, did go in. Okay, so I'll put everything back in as it came. All we need to do is remember the order. So here we go. So we have a couple O-rings, our seat, and then we're going to put our crystal on, and then we're going to put this back with our notch right at the top. Okay, so here we go. So again, we're going to take our seat for the ring, and it's just going to sit in just like that. And then we're going to make sure that our gasket is sitting in properly all the way in the case on top. Okay, so hard job is done. So we have our ring and our gasket seated inside our case here. We'll do a little inspection to make sure everything that's good, and then we are going to put the crystal in. Alright, so here we go. We'll put this right back down, center screen. New crystal is going to go on. Just going to give it a little puff of air here. And then we're going to seat this right down in. Okay. Again, we're going to check that, make sure everything is good, and that it's seated properly. Looks to be seated okay to me. Now, from here, we're going to install the ring that sits over the crystal. What we're going to have to do again is try and find that piece that is just slightly raised over everything else. A good way to try and do that is you can look at the underside of the ring, and if you see a part of it that is not perfectly round, that is slightly flat, that is our spot. I'm trying to get a little focus on here. There it is. So it's right here, if you can see that. Slightly flat right here, that's how we know where it should go. And I'm just going to put that on top. Okay. And we're going to try and set it down a little bit. Get it centered. Now what you're going to need from here is a crystal press. They come in basically two types. Yes, I'm filming this from above. So here's my crystal press. I have the nylon dies. You can get this with aluminum dies, but I like the nylon one because it's not going to scratch. So I'm going to be right back. I'm going to press this one in off camera. I can't really do it with the camera on, but I'm going to press it in, and then we'll be back to complete the watch. All right, welcome back. So we got the crystal pressed on back to the ring here. What I would like to say is that when you choose a die, you need to make sure that the die fits perfectly around that ring here. Obviously, you don't want it to touch the crystal at all, okay? As well, if you are going to be pressing these in with your press, I would suggest that you also use a piece or a plastic bag over the watch when you press the crystal down. So I always use one of our inventory bags, and I will just press the crystal down just like that. So this is going to make sure that nothing gets scratched, nothing gets marred. It stays in the same condition it was when we started. So use a plastic bag. It's very helpful. Okay, now we're almost done. All we need to do is get the bezel back on. Now again, this is going to be another case where you're going to have to press the bezel on with another die. So this die obviously is a little too small. We're going to choose a die that's just the appropriate size. But anyway, we're going to put this O-ring back on, and then we'll go from there and put on our bezel. And we just put it straight into the bezel. It's going to sit right in the bezel here. See? We just set it right in there, and it goes right in. And from there, we're going to be able to just push this by hand back onto the watch. So we don't even need to use that case back tool again. See if I can get this right, and we're just going to push it back. It was very easy 2 seconds ago, and now it doesn't want to go. And there it is. All right. So our bezel is now back on. Just like that. And our case is complete. So all we have left to do is put the movement back in the case, which is just going to take a second or two, and then we're going to have our nice watch all back. So before we do that, I'm just going to clean out, I'm going to clean the underside of the crystal here real quick before we put the movement back in. So give me 2 seconds and we'll be done with that. Alright, we're back again. Just cleaned the underside of this crystal, and we're ready to put it back on top of this movement. Very simply, what we're going to do first is just make sure there's no dust on the inside of this case. I realize you can't see me doing that. Clean off the dust here. Clean off the dust, any possible dust on our movement, on our dial here. And then we're just going to line up the watch. I would recommend not touching the movement, but whatever pad you're holding the movement down on, just use that to turn it. And it lines right up, like so. And that should be just about it. So from there we're going to flip it over just like we did at the beginning. We're going to move this so it lines up perfectly. Just like that. There it is. Alright, perfect. So everything should be lined up. I have pre-oiled this stem here, so we're not going to worry about putting an old stem back in. I've cleaned it and oiled it. And we're just going to stick it right back in. Nice and easily. Just like that. And give it a little caress and finesse. There we go. And it's in. Alright. Now, the last thing to do is we are going to put our movement ring back on. Here's our movement ring. There's a notch for the crown and the stem, excuse me. And it's just going to sit right in there. There it is. And to complete our watch, let's just check out and see how it looks. Gorgeous, right? That's it. We'll do a little final inspection as well, just to make sure that there's no dust under the crystal. But other than that, I think we have a beautiful Seiko 5. Once again, this is 1969 Seiko 6106-8510. Now fully cleaned with a new crystal, and it is just a very lovely piece. If you're interested in this watch, let me know. It may be on sale on our website. It may not. But if you want it, send me a text or a message. This is John again, signing off from Vintage Watch Hunter. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please send us a message. Follow us on Instagram at Vintage Watch Hunter, and like and subscribe if this was helpful to you. I hope it was. See you guys later.